Hello everybody and welcome to another Borderless video. This is James and today I'm joined by Scott Oliver, otherwise known as the Retirement Rebel. He is originally from West Africa but has now lived in 10 different countries, and now he lives in Costa Rica. He runs several successful businesses such as the Retirement Rebel, WeLoveCostaRica.com, and MyProfitableBusinessOnline.com. He's also written and published several books, such as Costa Rica's Guide to Investing Offshore in Bull and Bear Markets, How to Buy Costa Rican Real Estate Without Losing Your Camisa, and his newest one, Online Profits Breakthrough. So today we're going to talk to him about life in Costa Rica and how some other people can start businesses such as this. So hi Scott, maybe we could start out on some of your background and how you got to where you are today, how you got to be the Retirement Rebel.
Okay, well, thank you for having me, James. Always a pleasure to speak to like-minded people who think along the lines that we do. Yeah, I'm Scott Oliver. I'm a 54-year-old Brit. Lived abroad for many, many years. I grew up in West Africa. I'm now living in Costa Rica, which is my 10th country. And my wife and I live here for most of the year. She's from Guatemala, so we spend a lot of time in Guatemala. And this year we've probably spent a good 3 or 4 months on vacation in various places, including Europe and Mexico, Guatemala, obviously Costa Rica too. So life is good, and I meet a lot of people here in Costa Rica who obviously are travelers who are looking to establish a new base, be it part-time or full-time. People come to me, or they come to my website, which is called WeLoveCostaRica.com, to find out, what life is about, living and retiring in Costa Rica, and we've got 4,000 plus articles where we help them with that kind of information.
Okay, yeah, that's great. How long have you had that business?
WeLoveCostaRica.com started in 2003, so it's actually quite an old website now. Well established, 4,000 plus articles, 25,000 members receive our newsletter on a weekly basis. But as you probably noticed with the overall banksters crisis over the past few years, interest and the economic viability for most people to actually move out of their countries and buy properties has declined dramatically. But life is still really good for us down here, and we certainly enjoy living in this land, which I call a land of stunning scenery, sunshine, and smiles.
Oh, so there's been a decline in the number of people looking to move to Costa Rica lately?
Yeah, I mean, the interest has declined, certainly in quite a serious fashion over the past 4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we've had this banksters crisis, and we've had a lot of people who previously used to write to me saying, Scott, well, I'm going to sell my property up in the States, and I'm going to use that money and come down and buy real estate in Costa Rica. And unfortunately, a lot of those people are A, unable to sell their property up in the US, or B, the value of that property has declined to such an extent that it doesn't give them the kind of buying power that they were hoping they would have to come to Costa Rica. Mm-hmm. The other problem we have here is that our real estate prices really haven't changed much. Whereas a lot of areas, obviously, in the US have seen some fairly dramatic declines. So Costa Rica is not nearly as affordable when it comes to real estate as it used to be. But, if you're coming down here and you're looking to live a healthy life full of fresh fruits and veggies and stuff like that, then yes, your standard of living and your cost of living will be really quite excellent. But, like Mexico, I'm assuming if you're going to be buying all sorts of imported food and your favorite cow's urine type beer, then obviously you're going to pay through the nose with taxes and everything else. But life for us is still very good, and obviously you've got to have the mindset to live abroad, and many people don't have that kind of a mindset, but we still love living here.
Okay. All right, so for those that might be thinking of coming down to Costa Rica, are there any business opportunities that really stand out to you?
No, good question, and it is something that's come up more. My career, really, since I've been down here, started simply by me trying to help people with important information. Because when I first came here, I came here from the Cayman Islands. Costa Rica is my 10th country, so I like change, I like moving around. And when I came here, I couldn't believe how many people were telling me how they were investing in a program that was paying them 3, 4, 5% per month. And in looking into these things very quickly, it became apparent that they were all pyramid schemes. Nobody could actually tell you what they're investing in. And I started warning people and eventually wrote a book called Costa Rica's Guide to Investing Offshore in Bull and Bear Markets. The book was meant as a warning. The book was meant as a cautionary tale. You know, when it sounds too good to be true, and you know, don't leave your brain on the plane. This kind of a message. But that message started me getting back involved with investments, because I'd spent 11 years on Wall Street, and I'd spent 5 years in Cayman Islands offshore. So I was doing more investment, just trying to help people and redirect them out of this kind of crap that they were getting involved with, which of course all blew up in the end. I mean, losing hundreds of billions of dollars. And that's where I first started. And then it kind of developed into something different, because I was then seeing all these people talking about these wonderful ocean front or ocean view real estate land for sale, which didn't have an ocean view. So, you know, it's just another group of scammers who are selling land, you know, typically good little Jewish boys in Florida. And, you know, I'm not anti-Semitic in any way, but I'm just telling it the way it is. These were Jewish groups from Florida who were selling land in Costa Rica, which didn't have an ocean view, and they're ripping people off left, right, and center. So I then wrote a book called How to Buy Costa Rica Real Estate Without Losing Your Camisa, which you know is shirt. So, you know, there were two slightly different careers, all based on the fact that I wanted to help people not get ripped off. And my real estate book turned into WeLoveCostaRica.com and this massive website. And we've been in real estate sales and rentals and real estate management now for many years. My wife works with me. Her eldest son and his wife works with us. So that's how that developed. And getting on to your question, you know, making money or getting involved with businesses, the last business that we're involved with is a very profitable online business, which I'm very excited about. And I got involved with that simply because I had people like you, well, not like you, a lot older than you, who were saying to me, Scott, look, I want to come to Costa Rica, but I don't have the pension I thought I was going to have. I mean, you've read the stories about pension bankruptcies and the $2 trillion unfunded pension problem that we've got sitting in the US. So people are saying, well, how can I make money when I'm down there? So I was looking around for a legitimate, proven system that could help people make money, okay? Because the one thing that I find fascinating when I speak to people is they have this magic number in their mind about how, you know, they want to have $1 million to retire. And of course, most people will never have that. But if you think about it realistically, what are you going to earn on $1 million if you've got $1 million in the bank? You know, 2.5% maybe? And what's that, 25 grand a year? You know, I don't know about you, but I can't live on 25 grand a year. So, you know, what I'm saying to people is, okay, forget about your traditional retirement, because for many people, you and I both know that their pension's not going to be their number one. And number two, it might be quite possible that Social Security won't be there for them either. Okay, so I'm saying to people, well, what if I could show you a way that you could build an online business where within a year, you could quite possibly be earning more than you would be earning each month with $1 million in the bank. Would you be interested? So that's the online business that we ended up getting involved with. It's like a franchise type system. I'm very excited about that. But the reason I bring this up is when it came to investments in real estate and now this, they all started because I wanted to help my members, the 25,000 people that are members of my website, to live the life that they wanted to live. And, you know, for so many people, they have this dream about living in where you are in San Miguel, or they have a dream about living in Ecuador or Costa Rica, but they just never do it. And I'm saying, well, it's possible. It is. You've got to have the right mindset. Obviously, you've got to have the right tools, the right mentors, but it is possible. But you've got to get off your ass. You've got to have the right mindset, and you've got to take action and put your plan into action.
Yeah, I completely agree. What have you found to be the biggest obstacle that keeps people back from moving out of their home countries?
Well, I guess, you know, travel for me is an incredible education. And thankfully, since I've been traveling since I was like 0 years old, I have no problem with change of any kind. I mean, if you said to me, Scott, you've got to move to San Miguel de Allende right now, I could be packed in like 3 hours and, you know, gone. And I'd be quite comfortable 4 hours after I landed. Yeah. You know, I think people are scared of change, and I think that's not right. Obviously, people are concerned about leaving their family and friends, but you know, most of the time that concern is really not that legitimate. Legitimate concerns I would consider as, you know, family members with illnesses. Obviously, that gets even more complicated, and that's probably the number one reason that people leave Costa Rica to go back to the U.S. is because, you know, they're down here having a great time, but mum back home is sick, or in some cases, we know families where both parents need care, so that the family have gone from Costa Rica back to the US and they're both caring for their parents. But I don't know if there's a number one problem, but yeah, the attitude for me is, you know, life is an adventure. For God's sake, get up and live it. You know, and people tell me, well, I don't want to live in Costa Rica for the rest of my life. Well, don't do that then. Come down here for a 3-year adventure. Have a fantastic time. Yeah. And in 3 years, you can say to yourself, well, am I happy living here? Do I want to go to Belize? Do I want to go to Nicaragua? Maybe. It's half price there compared to Costa Rica, but very different. Do I want to go to Europe? You know? Life is an adventure. Seize the day, get off your ass and do something, and stop telling people that, you know, you're going to do something, but you never do it.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. And, you know, whenever I hear people and they have, you know, they say, you know, well, I can't, and I don't know where I'm going to go. I don't have enough money, or, you know, my family's back here, or this and that. To me, I just hear a lot of excuses, and, you know, it's an excuse for a bad attitude. And I think that's what it boils down to. Whether it's fear or whatever it is that's keeping you back from your dreams or what you want to do, it boils down to the attitude that you have. So that's the first thing you have to do. So you mentioned a lot of people come down there and then they end up going back. What are some of the main reasons that you see that people do that? What are the biggest reasons that people come and take the leap, but then they end up having to move back and stop this adventure that they've started?
Well, probably the number one thing, if you want to list the most important thing, is attitude of people when they come down here. You know, I did an interview similar to this one a few weeks ago with a young American who's an absolutely charming young man, but he was saying, you know, I went to Costa Rica and I looked in the mirror and there I was. You know, and what he was saying was, well, if you've got problems up in the States with yourself,
right,
you know, whether it's psychological or attitude problems, you know, getting on a plane and flying a few hours down to Costa Rica is not going to change those problems.
That's right.
Okay, I mean, if you are some kind of a psychopathic, type A personality, perfectionist son of a bitch, which I am, you've obviously got to try and adapt when you get here. You know, things are not done exactly the way you want them to be done here. It's very, very rare. It's very inefficient. It can be very incompetent. But, I mean, my lifestyle is just absolutely wonderful. I mean, I would have to be earning $1 million a year. I'd have to be netting $1 million a year in New York City to have the kind of lifestyle that I have here. Yeah. So when you move to a different country, you know, relax for 3 months at least. You know, don't even buy anything. Relax for 3 months. Just take it all in. Don't even think about criticizing, you know, why don't they do this, why don't they do that, because you're going to drive yourself insane. It's a different country. It's not just a different language in Costa Rica, although many people do speak English. They are a different people and they do think differently. The whole time concept obviously is very different from the US. So while you and I maybe, well, I don't use a watch anymore, but while you and I may be looking at our watches and stuff, they're just living in the moment. And if they happen to be an hour late because they were speaking to a friend of theirs on the telephone and they bumped into somebody else when they were down in the parking lot, no big deal. That's just the way they are. So people need to understand that and they need to relax more, just take it in and breathe. But I mean, we live in a beautiful country with a phenomenal climate. You can choose your own climate simply by moving up a couple of 100 meters. There's all these hundreds of different microclimates. So the attitude's important. People need to relax, take it easy for 3 months, then start making some serious decisions about maybe buying a place and maybe establishing a business.
Yeah, that's true. You know, even selling real estate, you know, I always recommend people, if they're going to a new country, they rent for a little while, just to make sure that it's a decision that they can live with. You know, I've seen a lot of times where people come and you know, buy a house or really put a lot of money into their decision, and then something happens and they change their mind. So it's a good idea just to dip your toe in the water, at least for a few months first. Also about the time issue, that was a big problem for me when I first moved to Mexico. And I was trying to get business done, whether it's working with lawyers or clients or employees or things like that. A lot of times, it's really hard to get people to get things done and as quickly as you might expect. So I would be calling them all the time and be wasting a lot of energy, and until I just learned that you have to kind of take it easy. People are going to get things done when they're going to get it done, and the sooner you realize that, the better your life is going to be. And although it's not as quick, being a little more laid back isn't necessarily a bad thing for your life as well. So.
But no, I mean the cultural aspect of things obviously is very important, and sometimes that sort of education is lacking. I mean we have probably over 4,000 articles on my WeLoveCostaRica.com website, and a lot of them will discuss the culture and the fact that the Ticos, which are the Costa Rican people, they call themselves Ticos, don't give very good directions, for example, and we don't really have addresses the way you would have in the US. For example, I spent, when I first got here, I'd only been here for like 3 months. I had a business meeting, and I was told that the office was like 100 meters away, or 100 meters west away from the old oak tree. Okay, and this old oak tree supposedly was very famous, and since I'm familiar with what an oak tree looks like, I figured I would actually be able to find this oak tree. So of course I'm going to this appointment, I'm driving around, and I knew I was roughly where I should be, and I kept on calling the guy saying that I couldn't quite find the oak tree, etc., 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 and the line was busy and I couldn't get through, and I ended up actually coming home. But the fact of the matter was, they'd cut down the old oak tree 30 frigging years ago. But people still know it as the corner where the old oak tree was.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
But these are the types of little things that are funny now, but at the time they can be incredibly confusing.
Right.
And obviously very irritating. But once you get over that, those little problems, once you've set yourself up in a new country, I mean, my experience, obviously, in what we're talking about here is Costa Rica, you've got your phone set up, you've got your electricity sorted out, etc., etc. After that, you are left alone. I've had, in 14 years, like 3 cold calls. Okay? In 14 years, I've had like 3 cold calls.
Yep.
I mean, I used to make 500 cold calls a day in the US. So, I mean, I'm just left alone. I'm left in peace and quiet. I do what I want. I don't hurt anybody else. I live a wonderful life. I make a great living. My tax situation is quite favorable. And yeah, life is sweet.
So I'm interested in hearing about your books. How did you get started writing?
Yeah, I mean, the first book that I published was the Costa Rica's Guide to Making Money Offshore in Bull and Bear Markets. Quite frankly, the establishment and the traditional way of doing things has never particularly appealed to me. And I stick my fingers up at most of the traditional ways of doing things. And quite honestly, my way of investing is not traditional, which is probably why I used to get a lot better results than the traditional investment managers. But that book is now very old, but it's primarily technical, and obviously for accredited investors only. The second book is the How to Buy Costa Rica Real Estate Without Losing Your Camisa book, which is still up to date to a certain extent, although it's got a few things that are now out of date. But I would be happy, by the way, to give a free copy of that book to your readers if they have an interest in living in Costa Rica, and I can give you the link to that later.
Yeah, great.
No problem there. And yeah, I'm also the co-author on a book called Online Profits Breakthrough, which discusses the online business that I'm also involved with. But again, my goal with all of these things to begin with was, how do I help people not get ripped off by these complete dickheads that are telling you you're going to make 5% per month but can't give you any more information after that. And then it was, how can I help the members of my website who are writing me saying that they bought ocean view land and discovered when they came down here for the first time that doesn't actually have an ocean view. And then the next book came about because people kept asking me, saying, Scott, I want to live in Costa Rica, but how do I make some money? So yeah, it's been fun.
Okay, and for other people that might be interested in writing a book, how did you get started on doing that?
Okay, well, first of all, I need to point out that I consider myself a professional scribbler rather than a writer. Okay, my grammar sucks. So, although I did give my books to an editor for a check, I don't pretend to be a quote author and all that nonsense. But, if I had to give a word of advice to anybody, it's just do it. The first book took me over a year. I literally had the beginnings of carpal tunnel syndrome. Because, after writing the book, then you spend editing the damn thing. And, once you've changed one piece, you need to change another piece. It can take forever. But, start it in little chunks. Think about the book structure in, let's say, it's 10 chapters. Okay, so you work on one chapter first. You finish that one. You work on the next one. Then all of a sudden, you've got 10 chapters. And the next thing I would certainly encourage people is there is a lot of very affordable help out there. Whether it's on Fiverr.com or many of these other websites, there are a lot of people out there that will help you put your book together, will help edit it, will help structure it, will help create an ebook for you. But, if you've got an important message to give to people, just do it. At some stage, you're going to have your own wonderful product that you're going to feel great about. Yes, you've still got a market after that, but you're going to feel so good that you've actually done something. And, when I meet people and they say, well, you've done all these books and stuff. Well, yeah, but there was one stage in my life where I hadn't done anything. I put up dozens of websites too, but there's one stage where I didn't know a damn thing about websites. So, sit down, make a plan, and put that plan into action. Start writing, start typing, whatever it is, because you're going to feel great when it's done.
Okay, and so back to Costa Rica, what type of person would you say Costa Rica is good for?
Interesting question. I mean, it can appeal to different types of people. I mean, in the capital area, in the area around the capital, San Jose, which we call the Central Valley area, that's obviously a lot more cosmopolitan and would appeal to people that like to be in contact with cultural activities, with the theater. I mean, we have a very good, actually, Teatro Nacional, the National Theater. And we have a lot of guest artists coming down from the US and guest orchestras, guest conductors, which for me is exciting. You've got the Caribbean coast. We have two coasts, of course, in Costa Rica, the Pacific as well as the Caribbean. The Caribbean coast is a little bit more hippie-like, a little bit more laid back, whereas the Pacific coast, I would suggest, is a little bit more yuppie-like.
Okay.
Okay, I'm using American terms because that's primarily our audience. The real estate prices on the Caribbean are more affordable than they are on the Pacific, but the Pacific tends to have a little bit more sophisticated infrastructure.
We'll see. And so, with this more sophisticated infrastructure, so does that mean that there's all the type of malls that you might find in, say, Western countries? Are there skyscrapers?
God, I hope not.
No.
No, I mean, Costa Rica is certainly what we call an LDC, a less developed country.
Okay.
And the capital city certainly has most of what, most developed cities would have. Whether it works in the same fashion or as efficiently is another matter. But both coasts are certainly very much less developed, and the Caribbean coast especially is very much less developed than the Pacific coast. Okay. So on the Pacific coast, Guanacaste, which is the northern Pacific area, coming down to Punta Arenas, coming down to the South Pacific areas. Yeah, sure, there are malls. There's not a lot of skyscrapers, no. And one important consideration for many people coming down here, obviously, is healthcare and hospitals and good doctors. By far, the best selection of both doctors, surgeons, any kind of medical professional, and the best hospitals is in and around San Jose in the Central Valley area. Having said that, there is a new hospital, CIMA, up in Liberia, in Guanacaste. Liberia is another big airport. There's two main airports, Liberia and San Jose. So, people from the West Coast, from California, will fly into Liberia. So, yeah, there's a new hospital there. How efficient and effective it is at the moment, James, I honestly can't say because it is fairly new. But I'm assuming a lot of the doctors that are here in San Jose go up to Liberia to attend to the patients up there. I don't know.
And what about housing costs? I know that's a very relative question, but in general, how would you say that how the prices are for accommodation there?
Well, the beach areas tend to be a little bit more expensive because they're obviously more touristy areas. Okay, And, you know, from an owner standpoint, if you are investing in real estate near the beach and that's your market to sell to vacationers, etc., rather than long-term people, it takes a bit more of a toll on your real estate because you got people, you know, running in with surfboards and God knows what else. So it's more short-term rentals and it's more high impact on your own real estate that you happen to own. Okay. Whereas, for example, where we are, my wife and I, and our specific region where we get involved with sales and rentals and property management, this is very much more of an executive area because Costa Rica is a fairly substantial offshore jurisdiction. You know, for example, we have thousands of employees down here with Amazon.com and Hewlett-Packard and a number of other, you know, substantial companies, big call center operations, Pete Marwick, KPMG. I mean, there's a lot of big companies that were down here. So that's more long-term, consistent rental. And we manage probably about 50 different rental properties down here for our clients. When it comes to rental costs, again here, our market is executive rather than, you know, the local Ticos that might be renting a place for $500 a month. So our rentals start, I would say, probably around $1,500 a month and up to 10 grand a month. Okay. You can certainly pay those prices on the beach too for, you know, magnificent ocean view properties, but you know, like everywhere, there's you know, a range of rentals and there's a range of real estate for purchase. But here in our area, demand is still very, very strong, especially from a lot of these big companies and these executives whose rentals are being paid by multinationals, and business is excellent for us.
Sure. Okay, and what about prices for other things like food or transportation?
Okay, well, cars are expensive here because the import duties on cars is high, especially luxury cars. So, for example, a Toyota RAV in the States, which might cost, I don't know, I think they're probably about 18 grand or something up there. Here will cost you 30. Okay. So, yeah, cars are expensive. Gasoline is expensive. Don't ask me how much it is because I never pay attention. But to fill up my car, probably costs me $60. I drive a Toyota RAV. Okay. When it comes to food, you know, once again, if somebody's coming down here to renew themselves, to live again, to begin again, why not do it in a healthy fashion? Why not go to the local feria, you know, the local market, and buy fresh food, fresh veggies and fresh fruits, and it will cost you pennies. Whereas if you go to the local supermarket, yeah, it's going to cost you a lot more money. You know, yes, you can buy meats. Yes, you can buy fish. If you're going to buy imported food products, once again, with import duties, yes, it's going to cost you a lot more, and you're probably going to be a hell of a lot unhealthier for it. Okay, so, you know, I do speak to gringos who come down here who tell me it's very expensive to live. And, you know, you ask them about, you know, how much you're spending on this, that, and everything else, and, you know, they're buying all imported stuff. You know, buy the stuff we grow here in Costa Rica, buy the local fish we get from both coasts, and you'll certainly save yourself a fortune. When it comes to healthcare costs, I pay about $100 a month for the local healthcare system. And it depends on your age, it depends on your retirement income. It could be $100 a month, it could be less, it could be $300 a month. If you're a rentista, which is a different residency category where you're coming down here to work, you might pay even more for health insurance. But I look at what I have with health insurance. I look at my property taxes, which are probably $1,500 a year, which is peanuts. And property taxes in the US tend to be a lot higher. Obviously, health insurance up there tends to be a lot higher. And your overall taxes up there tend to be a lot higher than they would be down here. So we live a very good life and our overall expenses are pretty low. But yeah, you've got to be sensible with how you live.
Okay. And what about international travel? It looks like you do a lot of traveling. How easy is that from there?
Well, it is easy. I mean, San Jose, you can fly from San Jose to Miami to practically any other place. If I want to go to Europe, I deliberately avoid flying into the US because I don't like being treated with like a leper with bad breath. So I fly from here to Panama, and Panama to Europe, or here to Caracas, Caracas to Europe. Or if somebody wants to fly to the US, I mean, we're a couple of hours away from Miami, and we're a couple of hours away from Dallas. That's easy. And from Liberia to California and lots of other different airports up there, that's easy.
And what are some of the fun things to do? You know, if somebody wants to take a weekend or something, what are some good destinations around Costa Rica?
Well, there's zillions. I mean, again, there's the cultural aspect of things here in the city with the theater and movies and shopping. We've got some great shopping. Obviously, we've got a selection of volcanoes that people would like to see. We've got all sorts of wonderful wildlife parks that people go and visit. We've got zillions of absolutely gorgeous beaches along the Pacific coast. You've got scuba diving. You've got islands off the coast too, which are interesting. You've got a very big island, which of course has just slips my brain. What the hell is it called? Coco. Islas de Coco, see.
Oh, yeah.
Which obviously is a huge destination as well, because it's one of these unspoiled places that people go scuba diving. You've got whale watching. You've got all sorts of canopy tours. You've got all sorts of jungle forest tours. You've got Manuel Antonio. You've got the Osa Peninsula, which has got something like 5% of the world's biodiversity and still thankfully unspoiled to this day. So there's lots of things to do. There's areas like San Vito, which was originally very Italian. That's very close to the Panamanian border, but on an elevation which makes the climate beautiful. So if you think of Costa Rica, you've got both coasts. Obviously, both coasts are at sea level. Both coasts are pretty much toasty areas to live in, lots of sun. And then as you come inland, it just gets higher and higher and higher and higher. And you've got areas like Cerro de la Muerta or Muerte, where, you know, it can get below zero. There are people used to die, you know, traveling down there with their oxen delivering coffee. And we had a weekend home in a place called Santa Maria de Dota, which was at 7,000 feet, where we looked down on the clouds as part of our view, which was just mind-blowing, and enjoyed a fireplace every night. So you can choose your own climate simply by choosing elevation. And yeah, there's plenty of things to do for people who want to come here. So if there's a type of person that would survive here, it's somebody that can relax. It's somebody that can accept the fact that this is a different place with a different people and a different culture. Somebody that hopefully will take the time to learn a little bit of Spanish. But, you know, we've got some of the people that live the oldest in the world here. You know, we've got blue zones in Costa Rica where the Ticos are living to well over 100 years old. I've got a video on my website that shows a woman who's 98 years old still chopping her firewood. So it's a beautiful place to live. It's certainly changed as everywhere else have, and we love living here.
All right. Oh, that sounds great. Sounds like you got some good projects going on down there. So just to wrap this up, would you mind mentioning that book that you'd like to give away to the listeners again?
Yeah, I mean, if anybody has a serious interest in living or retiring in Costa Rica or investing in Costa Rica real estate, I'll give you a link to my book called How to Buy Costa Rica Real Estate Without Losing Your Camisa, which means shirt. Okay. The other book that I will give people access to, just click on the link and sign on, and they'll get it downloaded, is My Online Profits Breakthrough, which is a proven system that we're now using to help people that are coming down here who are saying, well, Scott, you know, I want to live there, but how do I make some money? And it's a very profitable online business with dozens of different products. And we're excited about that because it's helping small business owners and entrepreneurs to create a good income stream.
All right, great. I'll definitely put some links in the notes. And it's been great talking to you. And I'm sure we'll be in touch, so hopefully we can do this again in the future.
Well, sounds great. Con mucho gusto. It was a pleasure speaking to you, James. And on behalf of myself and people like me, thank you for doing what you do and writing about what you write about. Because, you know, once again, that traditional mindset of how people are living, that traditional mindset of how people are thinking about their retirement, I think people have really got to reconsider that and, you know, start making some different plans.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome, James. Thank you.